Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
The Wild are back on the ice. We're going to talk to Michael Russo about what it looks like, how promising it might be. We'll get into some more roster talk here on the Russo Hockey Show. This is part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. Please subscribe to this show or the network if you like listening. It's the easiest way to listen. If you'd like to advertise with us, you can reach me at JSOUHAN@TalkNorth.com. Follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. Check out all of the new shows, the outdoor shows, the Gopher Hole shows. Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. And, of course, thank you to the sponsors who keep us rolling. Profile by Sanford, Bosch Law, and Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin. So tell me what it looks like, Michael. I have not been out to Tree Rink. You have. What's the team look like? What's the setup look like?
It's been really good. The team looks really good, and I think it just shows you the difference between sort of mentally coming into training camp, knowing you got 8 months of hockey to go before you even, could even start thinking about the playoffs, to them coming in knowing that immediately games start here in the next week or so. And they look ready to go. They haven't gotten out of shape. They look fast today at practice. Dean Evison did a competition practice where they essentially did all situations of hockey, from 5-on-4 to 4-on-3 to 3-on-3 to 6-on-5s to shootouts. Man, it was just fun to watch. The players loved it, and it was a great variation that I think the players in the middle of a sort of an arduous training camp really grow to appreciate. And then on Thursday, they'll have a scrimmage, their final scrimmage before they leave for the Edmonton hub. They'll practice Friday, take Saturday off, practice Sunday, and then they leave for Edmonton. And then those early days in Edmonton, they're allowed to practice every day but one. They have one exhibition game, and again, then August 2nd, they're going to start. Those first 4 or 5 days in the bubble, the players are not allowed to do anything other than go to the meal room, go to the rink, go to practice. It's sort of a self-quarantine in this bubble. And from then on out, they'll be able to at least have sort of the run of the bubble.
And have you? Is it still your plan to cover, at least start off covering things from here, or is there a chance of you going to Edmonton?
No, I mean, well, there's a chance if they relax the quarantine, I'll go for the conference final and the Stanley Cup finals. If all of a sudden the Wild wound up in the second round, I'd go there. But until the United States gets its act together, I don't see the Canadian government getting rid of that 14-day quarantine. They've already extended the border closing to non-essential travel until August 21st. But if you're going there for work, like a sports writer to cover hockey, the border is open as long as you show essentially a letter from the NHL showing your approved credential. But again, if I went, it was going to be 83 days, and we just decided that it made no sense for me to go. Again, there's nothing to really be gained there other than being in the building for the actual games. But you can't cover practice. The access is the same Zooms that we're going to get back here. With the quarantine, you were going to miss the exhibition game. To spend 20 days just made very little sense to me. It was just, especially if I'm going to cover it not only from a Minnesota Wild perspective, but from a national perspective, it just would have been a lot of time in the hotel room. I mean, just imagine, the way it works, Jim. Just imagine practice days, not being able to go to practice and do this job and not leave the hotel room and break up that monotony. It's just gonna, I think, suck. So. So I'll cover it from here, and it'll be very, very, very different to cover it from here. I'll tell you that. I mean, I've never covered a game off my TV in my career, so that makes me a little anxious.
Yeah, it's funny because a couple angles on that journalistically. We did send Sarah McClellan there, and she's still in quarantine. She's got like another 11 days to go before she can even leave her
God,
hotel room. It's just brutal. I really feel for her. I admire her being willing to do it. I wish she weren't doing it. And as you said, we don't know what will be gained. I mean, as a in the Athletic and Star Tribune are different entities, in that there are a lot of Canadian hockey writers who are based up there who can kind of do the things that kind of cover for you, and you can still do things from here. We just felt like we should have our own person there, and I don't know if it's going to pay off or not. And I feel for
yeah, I
Sarah
mean,
having
it's
to be
still
there.
going to be. I mean, to be in the rink is a different thing than watching it on TV. Now, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of maybe for one game excited to watch it on TV because I kind of want to see what the new NHL looks like on TV with no fans and all the different things that they're able to do during a broadcast to make this interesting for the viewer. The interactiveness, the different camera angles, all that type of stuff I want to see. But then on game two, I'm going to be knowing myself, I'm going to wish I'm in the arena. But again, from my perspective, especially from the Athletic, I mean, we're going to have 6 Canadian hockey writers in each hub, but for 3 on each. But from my perspective, I was going to be the only American writer there. And it would have been like, hey, Russo, McKinnon's on fire, do a McKinnon feature. And then I would have to get on the same Zooms that everybody else is getting on. I wouldn't get to go and interview Nathan McKinnon or Joe Sakic or Jared Bednar. And so from my perspective, it's just like if they're going to ask me to do that, I'd almost rather just be at home. But it is gonna. I mean, it's gonna suck from that perspective. But you're right. To me, like the way I looked at it is that I was going to go for 83 days, and say the Wild were gone immediately. It's like you're going up to the first 20 to cover 3 games. It just made very little sense to me. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I would say
I know that game 1 though. I'm going to be sitting on my couch just kicking myself.
the other thing I was going to say is I try not to write off TV, but as a columnist and beat writer, different jobs, and there have been times where like it started to begin to stop sending people to the NFC Championship game, the AFC Championship game. So there have been times when I've talked to editors and said, well, instead of covering a really bad Timberwolves game today, why don't you write something setting up the Super Bowl right off the AFC and NFC Championship game? And it makes sense, and you can do that. You can try to be entertaining and bring some insights and everything. But it still feels weird, Michael. It still feels weird to sit on your couch and write something because
No.
we spent our entire careers seeing people seeing things in person and seeing people face to face.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it's like, so the double edge of that is that like while it's going to be awesome to be in that press box and feel the cold air and hear the sounds and see everything that's not just on a TV, the reality is that's all you could do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't ever have a face-to-face conversation with anybody. You're not anywhere close to the bubble. And so it just, to me, it made very little sense. And then the other thing that scared like I would have gone in a minute if I could have gone July 29th and not quarantined. But 14 days in a 400 square foot hotel room at a hotel that I've stayed at many times that I despise. That when you've I mean, again, selfishly, it's like, you've started this profile by Sanford. It's working. I've lost a bunch of weight. And now all of a sudden you have nothing to do but eat and sit on your ass and not really exercise. Like you can't go for a walk. You can't go for a gym. Even just health wise, like even in New York, at the heart of this, I remember Governor Cuomo came out and was like, get out, go for a walk, get some sun. It's not healthy to not get sun. And the fact that the Canadian government won't even let you leave your hotel room,
Yeah.
it just seems so unhealthy and unreasonable that I just couldn't see myself doing it. I would have ruined everything that I started the last 2 months with Profile, I think. So I just I don't know. Trust me, it's I know that on July 29th when the Wild touch, when that puck drops for the Avalanche game, and on August 2nd when it when they're in essentially a playoff series against the Vancouver Canucks, and I'm sitting here on my couch. It's going to be a very bitter pill to swallow, and I wouldn't want to be around me at that moment.
Yeah.
So,
But you did touch on something else that, listen, we all commiserate about having no sports. We've all commiserated about the pandemic, about quarantining, about not being able to go to bars. We all have the same complaints. The flip side of that, as you talked about your health, is my back has never felt better. I've never slept better. I've never, had so much fun playing with my dog. I mean, listen, none of this is good, but it has revealed to me just how weird the sports writing life is and how almost unhealthy the sports writing life is in some ways.
Yeah, well, I've discussed this. It's funny. I just did a Profile by Sanford podcast. It's their own special podcast, and I talked about that, about how I got in these habits. I've been a sports writer since I was 15, and long hours. I mean, just think of next week, right? The Wild are going to play 9:45 p.m. games, but I'm still going to be getting up at my normal 7 a.m. So now it's like you're writing at midnight or 1 a.m. and you're not going to read against 4. Well, it's going to be hard not to have another meal at when you're up that long in a day, right? And that's been my life forever, is sitting around, not doing a lot of exercise, eating poorly. You're in press boxes, which, as you know, is not exactly nutritious food, not a bunch of vegetables and fruits. You're in airplanes, you're waking up, you're going to bed at 1 a.m. after a game, and you're waking up at 4 a.m. for a quick wake up call and flight, and it's just a bunch of unhealthy living. So, but it's crazy. Like with social distancing now, I haven't even had the sniffles since February, which just shows me. And I know I've been reading all these articles lately about how airplane air is healthier than we all think and all that stuff. But all I know is I haven't been on an airplane since since March 9th, I think it was, and haven't been in a hotel room since March 9th, and haven't been in a press box with a ton of different writers and in locker rooms with a ton of different sweaty, dirty athletes. And I haven't had the sniffles since then. So I think what it tells you is that we are all making each other sick. And that's why I'm on the mask bandwagon. I think it just shows you that if you social distance and you take care of yourself, it's other people that makes you ill, right?
I really think I always hated the name Minnesota Wild. I always thought it just sounded like a bad marketing attempt. But I think the Minnesota smelly, dirty athletes would have been much better.
Yeah, I know. Musky, sweaty, dirty athletes. You know what's funny? I don't dislike the Wild now that I've gotten to the Athletic, and we have the different policy where we treat them like a collective noun. So it just makes it easier. It just makes it easier to write. Like, I don't hate the Wild name anymore because you don't have to there are certain newspapers, that like the Strib that they treat them as a singular. And so it's Wild it's what's that?
We've changed. We've now allowed it to be a collective.
I just read Sarah's story today, and it says the Wild is.
Well, maybe it's bad. Maybe it's old habits because we're now allowed to use it as a collective.
Oh, okay. Somebody should tell her.
All right. Hey, tell us about First of all, tell Profile by Sanford if they want to do podcasts, they should get them on our network and have Brandon producing them, and we'll really make them sound good. But tell us about Profile by Sanford, and then we're going to get to some actual hockey questions and hockey news.
Just like I said, my weight I was gaining weight again, and so I got into a lot of bad habits during the season and the quarantine, and so I got in touch with Profile by Sanford, which, and by the way, again, Sanford Hospitals, this is developed by doctors, and I started right away, and the program has been just absolutely awesome. Now, it's funny, last week I on the podcast, I was on such a high because I lost like 4 or 5 pounds that week. And I've been doing this long enough that I know that certain weeks you just plateau, and it's hard to kind of hit it again. So this week's been a little more slow rolling. Haven't gained weight, but just haven't lost a ton, even though I'm doing sort of the same thing. But I'm over the 35-pound mark, and one big reason is the personal coaching that I get from Danette, who's my coach. We go over the challenges this past week and this upcoming week, and I'll be talking to her tomorrow, and I'll be telling her, hey, I'm a little worried about next week when I got all these 9:45 games. Give me some tips on what to do to make sure that I don't dive into the pantry and start even overeating their food, let alone because it's so good, but let alone bad non-nutritious food. So again, the food's delicious. I feel constant support, and I honestly highly recommend it to everybody. There's 6 locations in the Twin Cities, but there's also locations outside of not only the Twin Cities here in Minnesota, but outside the state. So for more information, go to profileplan.com and tell them Russo sent you. That, again, is profileplan.com.
Brad and I have to cough. Hold on 1 second.
What happened to? I think you should leave that in, and I just want to know what happened to the fact that we're healthy. That we haven't gotten colds in the last.
Well, actually, I've been talking mostly about my back health and and fewer headaches, better sleep. My wife and I did come down with something, though. We both went get COVID tests. We were both negative, and my wife cannot stop coughing. So there are still viruses out there, but I mean, my physical health, I feel better than I ever have. But I cough every once in a while.
By the way, I still can't sleep.
Well, but you drink 8 gallons of coffee.
No, I really don't. Like during the pandemic, it's like 2 coffees in the morning and not again. And I still cannot sleep. It's like the worst. I don't know.
Wow. You know what? Yeah, I don't know. I always have struggled to sleep, and the pandemic has allowed me to settle into kind of regular hours, and that's really helped a lot.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to hockey.
I guess we can continue with the podcast now.
Yes.
I can't wait to listen back and see what Brandon kept in.
None of it. It'll be a 3-minute podcast. So I'll throw out the first Kaprizov question. What's up with Kaprizov?
Well, first of all, his name is pronounced Kaprizov.
Kaprizov. I know. You know what? I remember when Justin Morneau started telling us his name was Morneau instead of Morneau. I can't remember which one's right. In other words, I will get it wrong from now until forever. So just get used to it.
No. Well, old habits die hard. They're pronounced Kirill Kaprizov. And still, it is not done yet. He's on a tourist visa, but they got to get him to Edmonton, and they're trying to work that out. It is not done yet, even though the other 2 Russians, Romanov and Sorokin, are on their way to Toronto. The problem is if he lands, I can't imagine there's a ton of direct commercial flights from Moscow to Edmonton. And so the problem is if you connect, you have to quarantine for 14 days, or can you get to Edmonton and then do the 7 days of 4 negative tests 48 hours apart, or can you quarantine in the bubble? This is all still allegedly being worked out. Billy Guerin said again today it's not done. Paul Theophanis has indicated that it's not done. So as of the moment that we're talking now, the last I heard, which was this morning, he is still in Moscow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do we know? Are we sure
he exists? As I said, I think I joked on last podcast, this could be Putin's last stand.
If only that were funny.
Yeah, I know.
So what has anybody jumped out at you in terms of just seeing them in practice? Anybody look like they're in particularly good shape or particularly sharp, or is there anybody who could end up being surprisingly effective at this time of the year?
Well, I mean, they might have to start calling Joel Eriksson Ek Mr. July as opposed to Mr. September. I mean, he is awesome in camp. I mean, so good. And I think that gives the Wild a bit of an optimistic feel going into this series, where you just know that Dean Evison is going to try to get Eriksson Ek's line, or Eriksson Ek himself, out against Pettersson and Miller and Besser if they're on the same line. As much as he possibly can. Now, again, the games 1 and 2, Minnesota is the road team in Edmonton. So in that scenario, the Canucks will have last change. But Eriksson Ek looks absolutely awesome. Fiala looks fantastic. Parise looks fantastic. Ryan Suter and Jared Spurgeon look outstanding. Zuccarello had by far his best showing today in practice. And Stalock looks great as well. So those are those guys. The one prospect that continues to jump out at me, and maybe it's only because I've never seen him before, is Kalen Addison. He's the offensive right shot, undersized defenseman that Billy Guerin got in the Jason Zucker trade with the first round pick, and Alex Galchenyuk. And Addison has looked really, really good in camp and looks like he's got a bright future here. He's going to have to do some development and refining of his game as he continues to develop in the minors, but he'll turn pro this year, and I do think that that was a heck of a pickup to add to the prospect pool by Billy Guerin.
Let's get to some Twitter questions. I do want to thank Bosch Law. It's Jerry Bosch, Gerald W. Bosch, but you can call him Jerry. BoschLaw.com, workers' compensation.
Hey everyone, attorney Jerry Bosch here with Bosch Law Firm and WorkCompExperts.com. For almost 30 years, we've represented Minnesotans just like you all over the great state of Minnesota to guarantee they've been treated fairly and with respect when they've suffered a work-related injury. A work injury can change your life in an instant. You need someone on your side who can help you focus on getting back on your feet and getting paid while you do. You may be entitled to medical benefits, wage loss benefits, job placement, retraining, and payment for permanent disability. To make sure you are being paid all the work comp benefits you're entitled to, please call the attorneys at Bosch Law Firm. The call is always free, and there's never a fee unless we recover benefits on your behalf. Call 651-333-8300, Bosch Law Firm, or visit us at WorkCompExperts.com.
Okay, we have nobody from Minnesota is the Twitter handle. Now, Russo, now that you're not going to Edmonton, what is your biggest fear covering the playoffs remotely? Is there anything you haven't already covered?
It's funny. It's the same thing as sort of the players with no fans in the building. It's motivation. It's the same reason why, how Jim sometimes, especially for an afternoon game, a sports writer will leave the press box and go back to their hotel and write. Yep. I hate doing that.
Me too.
Last year, I covered an exhibition game against the Colorado Avalanche in Denver, and my manicness, I decided, I'm like, you know what I want to do? I want to beat the Wild up the hill to Vail and get there before I went to go cover the team bonding trip. So I packed up my stuff, and again, because I didn't have to file for the newspaper, I packed up my stuff. I drove 2 hours up the hill to Vail, checked into the Ritz basically an hour before the Wild got there, and I pulled out my laptop. And to write a normal exhibition story, it took me like 2.5 hours. I was like getting up, pacing around the room. I just had no motivation. It was like I was out of the sort of aura of being in the press box and covering the game. And that's my biggest concern is that there is an atmosphere that's created when you're in the press box. But the deal is that they're going to be, after your game is over, they're going to be you're going to be under a real strict time constraint to get out of the arena for either the next writers to come in or for them to essentially close up shop. So I was really concerned about also being at the Rogers Arena covering the Wild game and then racing back to the hotel to do the same Zooms that I would do back here that Sarah McCullen's going to have to do. And so that's probably my biggest concern is that since I'm not going to get that feel of being at the arena and feeling like I'm watching the game in person. I'm concerned about watching on the TV, then pulling out my laptop and having sort of that motivating factor in your fingertips to write a game story. Now, I will say, I'm trying to come up with different types of story angles to change it up and not just do typical game stories, So I've got a couple really good ideas planned and in the works that I think that that readers will like in The Athletic as well. That'll be other than because I also don't want to fake it. Like I'm not in Edmonton, so I don't want to sit there and try to cover a game like I know a lot more than from a vantage point that the average fan at their home doesn't know. So if that makes any sense. So that's my convoluted answer to that question, but good question.
And convoluted answer, but it was interesting. That's we're all.
That's what I meant. Convoluted answer.
Convoluted and interesting.
Convoluted question. Yeah.
Convoluted and interesting. I could put that on my business card. From Zepper, actually from Carson asks. It's a very personal question. Are any of the Wild players expecting any bursts during the possible playoff window?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Basically, he's asking, because this is usually when hockey players are off, did any of the Wild players do they have any babies coming at this time of the year that might be bad timing now?
I don't know. Again, that's the type of that's another little stress to me that for all of us, Sarah, who's going to be in Edmonton, and me, is that because we don't walk around the locker room, that's not a normal question. You'd be like, you wouldn't go through every player on the Zoom and say, by the way, is your wife about to give birth? Is your wife about to give birth? This is the type of stuff you learn by just shooting the breeze with players in the locker room. Yesterday, I had a good reminder of that. A lot of this job, when you walk around the locker room, is not only shooting the breeze with players, but it's using your eyes and your ears. You see things that become a story. A great example of that was yesterday when Zach Parisi, to a question I asked, volunteered the fact that the players, the captains of this team, Koivu, him, and Suter, came up with a dress code for the players when they're at the bubble. That's something that if he didn't volunteer, we would absolutely never know, unless maybe they were showing B-roll as these players going into a game and we saw it on TV. We would never have known unless Sarah or I or Dan or whatever were in the locker room and we had our eyes open and saw the shirts, right? And this is the type of thing that is why I think it's just, I cannot wait till things get back to normal, hopefully one day, where we could do this job well enough to really give diehard hockey fans really good insight into the team that it's just impossible by not having that face-to-face human contact every day with these people that we cover on a daily basis.
And I'll say that about the sports writing profession is I think discerning fans who consume a lot of media are really going to miss the way we used to cover things. I
know that especially in today's day and age where the media is a hot topic and there's a lot of people out there that don't like the media. If you're a sports fan, though, I think that you should be sympathetic to this because if you are paying to read The Athletic or the Star Tribune, if you're taking the time by just listening to this podcast, you obviously are somebody that cares about sports a little more than the casual sports fan, hockey fan, whatever. And so I do think that this is the type of thing that I think that the fans should be sympathetic to because the goal of all of us is to be able to give you this type of incredible behind the scenes access that the average fan can't just get by turning on the TV or us interviewing a player via Zoom. So hopefully one day we'll get back to being in the locker room.
I hope so. Hey, thank you to Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund. Your State Farm agent, works out of Champlin. Michael and I never go to Champlin. We deal with Tony remotely, and everything works great. He's been great to work with. Again, Tony Hoagland, State Farm, Hoaglund.
It's not just a home or a car. It's the 6 months you've saved for the Ultra HD flat screen, just in time for football season. And the overtime you worked for that third car so your team can drive himself to practice. While other insurance companies just see them as a bundle or a combo, State Farm agent Tony Hoagland sees your home and car as things you work really hard for. Tony understands what your things really mean to you and is here to help you give them the protection they deserve. Talk to State Farm agent Tony Hoagland in Champlin for your home and auto insurance today. That's ChamplinInsurance.com.
From Joe on Twitter, after these playoffs, what positions will the Wild be most likely to retool? If it's center, what's the free agent market looking like?
There's really no good center free agent market. I wouldn't even touch it. I would only look at trade or bringing back Galchenyuk. And then again, the decision that Billy Guerin will have to make is that goal. Is he going to come out with Dubnyk and Stalock? Is it going to be Stalock and Kakkonen? He's going to have to make that decision. Or is he going to go out and get a free agent if he thinks it should be Stalock and somebody else that's not Kakkonen?
And our friend Pooks asked, who is the best looking goalie so far in camp? Is it too early to answer that?
You know what? Kakkonen looks great, but Stalock is by far the choice so far, the front runner to be the number one.
Interesting. Our friend Alec asked a question, money side, would Souhan or Russo buy the Wild? I think he's just trying to be funny, but I'm going to ask you a serious question because Kevin Garnett is desperate to be part of an ownership group owning the Wolves. You've dabbled around. You've had offers to be in like NHL front offices. Would you want to be part of an ownership group, or would that be a pain in the butt?
I don't know. I mean, look, the reality is that most NFL is very different, and even the NBA is very different than the NHL. Most sports teams, unless you're an NFL owner, you're not making a ton of money, if at all any money. It's all about ego. It's about the fun of owning a team. This is like trust me, Craig Leopold is not breaking bank by owning the Minnesota Wild. He's losing money, and so from my perspective, I can't even envision having the money to own a team. But if I had a ton of money, that it didn't matter if I lost 5 or 6 or 7 million a year. I absolutely think I would want to be part of that. I think it'd be if you're a competitive person and love the sport. Just to give you a great example is that Craig Leopold is going to Edmonton and he's going to be in the bubble. There's somebody he's not making a penny by the Wild coming back, but he's doing it because he just absolutely loves hockey and loves being the Minnesota Wild owner. So to answer your question, if I had a ton of money and didn't matter, because there's a lot easier ways. Let's put it this way: from a businessman perspective, it's a lot easier ways and better and smarter ways to make money than owning a professional sports team, especially in the NHL.
Well, and I think the NHL is different than the other sports, because the other sports, if you bought Taylor bought the Wolves for $88 million and is going to sell them for $1.4 billion. The Wolves bought the NFL team for $600 million and are going to sell them, and now the team's worth $3 billion.
And what you just said is a great point, because when I said that about Leopold, I'm looking at the short game. The goal, if you're going to own a professional sports team, is to eventually flip it and make a ton of money on it. Now, I will say this: Craig Leopold, at least to me, when I've asked him that question, is not looking to flip the Wild and make that bank. I think he looks at this as he's saying now, or maybe years ago when he bought the Wild in 2008, he was thinking of making a fast buck. I think his goal now is to make this a family affair and hand it off to his children.
Cool. From Brian Foster, any important Canuck news that's important to know prior to the upcoming series?
Not really. Virtanen got into a little trouble a couple weeks ago by being seen out on video and tight-knit bars and stuff like that, and not social distancing and all that stuff. But the big news out of camp is that they're healthy. Markstrom looks great. Besser is feeling as good as he's felt. JT Miller is still walking and healthy, which should give the Wild nightmares. And Pedersen's Pedersen. So, yesterday in practice, at least, Travis Green, according to the reports that I saw, loaded up on his top line. But that team has a lot of skill, actually. So that's the big news. And I tweeted this out today. If people listening are Athletic subscribers, make sure on your you go to your settings and you add Canucks to your feed. And if you add Canucks to your feed, you'll see all of our coverage of the Vancouver Canucks. We're not cross-tagging our stories. We just think that there are some Canucks fans and some Wild fans that would have no interest in every day reading Wild and Canucks stories. But if you're interested, that's the cool part of the Athletic, is that you could just go and add your teams that you want to read about, and you'll see all that coverage.
Cool. From Aaron Hockman, is there any chance Kalen Addison gets to play in a game against the Canucks?
Not if there's if they're completely healthy. Let's put it that way. He's obviously not playing over anybody in the top four, and I can't see him playing over Soucy and Hunt. Now, if somebody gets hurt, I still think that they most likely go with Louis Belpedio or Brennan Manel. To me, he's going up there as sort of the third right D beyond the top six, and so he would have to essentially jump over those two in the depth chart to suddenly wind up in a game. And if the Wild lost a left shot D, Bartkowski would clearly be the guy that goes into the lineup.
Just a couple more Twitter questions. We're not going to get to all of them. We rarely do, but we do appreciate you sending them in. Also, do us a favor as we try to grow Talk North. Tell a friend. If you like the show, if you like the network, tell a friend. Spread the word that way. We would appreciate it. Thanks again to our producer, Brandon Morton. From Mitch Perzichilli, is Rask still likely to be bought out during the buyout window? Any chance he doesn't make the traveling roster prevent him from possibly sustaining an injury, not being eligible to be bought out, similarly to what happened to Heater?
No, he'll go on the trip. Yes, I still think he'd be most likely to be bought out. No, if I had to guess, it's pretty obvious. I think the guy's not going on the trip. Just watching camp, I think JT Brown and Kyle Rao probably aren't going. And if I had to guess right now, they would take the extra center and Luke Johnson over Sam Anis, and maybe one reason for that, Mitch, is for what you just said, is that maybe they would even put in Johnson over Rask because they don't want to risk injury there, for a buyout reason.
There are a bunch of questions
And
about.
by the way, the reason why they have to cut 3 players, the reason why I said 3 is because they're taking 4 goalies, and Kaprizov, as long as he makes it, Kaprizov will be one of the 31 players that can go. Now, if all of a sudden Billy Guerin by the end of the week finds out, look, it's just absolutely not going to happen that Kaprizov's even going to make it, or if it's worth bringing him, then all of a sudden they would only have to cut technically 2 players.
We have a lot of questions here about Wild future and offseason. I think we're going to save those. We're going to be talking about that stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Let's ask one more. I had one more question. Oh, the one question that's pertinent to right now from Ryan. Does Dean's new contract make him more likely to risk starting Kakinen in the playoffs?
No. I mean, he's going to go with the goalie that he thinks should go, and again, Stalock is so popular in that room too that Dean Evason's not going to alienate the entire team just to play Kakinen for no reason. So unless Billy Guerin said play Kakinen because I need to see him, if Alex Stalock's the guy that deserves to be in net, he's going to be in net. And so far, Alex Stalock in camp looks to be the front runner for that. And as we've seen, this team just seems to play better in front of him. I think he complements the Wild defenseman as well, because the Wild have such a mobile defenseman, which is, I think, the edge that the Wild have in the series. That when Alex comes back and is kind of that extra guy out there to help out those D, it really helps the Wild's transition game motor.
Good stuff from Michael. We'll be breaking down the playoff series here shortly. Thank you for sticking with this show and the network. Check out TalkNorth.com for all the other shows. Thanks to Brandon again, and we'll talk to you next week.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.
Blah, blah, blah.